Welcome back to the Rated R For Real podcast. I'm your host, Sam, and today we got a fun one for you. We are going to be predicting the end for James Cameron's box office smash hit, Avatar, and the upcoming sequels that will be just as amazing. Now, first released back 14 years ago in 2009, James Cameron's Avatar became the biggest box office picture in the world, only to have been recently beaten by the Russo brothers' Avengers Endgame, but nonetheless, Avatar was amazing for many reasons, but it was even more amazing for reasons you don't even know about, and we're going to get into. Now, first, obviously, big spoiler alerts coming this way. If you have not seen Avatar and Avatar The Way of Water, I recommend you pause this podcast, go watch those movies, and come back, and we will discuss this together. But for those who have seen it, or for those who do not care for spoilers, here it goes. Cameron's box office smash hit was amazing because it had a new concept that no one had ever seen before. The human race going to a new planet with a moon that supports life. That life were known as the Na'vi. On this planet, they went there to mine material called unobtainium to save Earth's economic crisis. In the meantime, while invading their homeland, the humans are on the brink of war with the Na'vi. Na'vi are a peaceful native species to the home planet of Pandora. That's the name of the moon, Pandora. Now, their way of life is about to be destroyed by human greed and casualties, but it all changes when Jake Sully, a former Marine soldier, gets his consciousness transferred into a mind of an avatar body and learns the ways of the Na'vi people and understand why this planet is so sacred and should not be taken advantage of. Now, this was a revolutionary movie idea, and the reason it was so popular and the amount of creativity, cultural development, and CGI put into the film made it just really pop and sparkle. But how original was the film? How original was this idea? Well, what are the subtle details in the movie that no one realized or recognized or noticed that paved the way for the future sequels? Well, let's start with the story plot. Humans go to an alien planet, and I just said this, but I'll give a more in-depth description here. Humans go to an alien planet known as Pandora, aka a moon, which is really the moon of a Jupiter-sized planet in the Alpha Centauri A star system, roughly 4.5 light years away. To those who don't know, that is an actual star system and is the closest star to our star, or to our binary star system, as we know from the workings of other people, and I have done podcasts on that before. But nonetheless, Alpha Centauri A is a star system roughly 4.5 light years away from us. And on this planet, they find a material known as unobtainium, which is a material that works as a superconductor at room temperature, material that humans are not able to create on Earth, but has tremendous scientific potential and also incredible economic potential to save the world's economic crisis. So they set up shop on Pandora to mine for this material and have it sent back to Earth. In the meantime, to make peace, the natives, or the Na'vi, Dr. Grace, the leading scientist and research expert in the Na'vi and the biology of Pandora, develops an idea that can hold a potential solution to the Na'vi problem. Create avatar bodies of the natives and project human conscious minds into the bodies to learn the ways of the Na'vi and gain their trust. To do this, both human and Na'vi DNA are merged together to create avatar bodies with genetic codes identical to the human hosts, and then their consciousness is able to project into it. Now, for those who do not know, this story was already told a long time ago, decades before Cameron ever thought of it, but with a little tweaking done so it's not exactly the same. Now, if we go back and watch my video on the Anunnaki and who they were, this story sounds very familiar. In Zecharia Sitchin's work, or in his book, 12th Planet, he has a series of books, but in the 12th Planet, there is a similar story described by the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, or translated from those who came from heaven to earth, from those from heaven that came down to earth, are a group of aliens on their home planet of Nibiru who are slowly dying from their atmosphere. After much revolution and debate, the king was overthrown of his power, Alelu, and he fled to the stars in search for gold. the only material that can heal their broken atmosphere. Eventually, he found his way to Earth, and he found a ton of gold in that process. He contacted the rest of his people, aka the Anunnaki, and they came to Earth and set up shop in various locations on Earth. Two of them being in the Persian Gulf and in the Abzu, that's what they call it. Their Abzu is also known as Northern Africa, or Southern Africa, but I'm pretty sure it's Northern Africa they set up shop in. Both stations and other stations were mining stations for gold, and once it was mined, they sent it back to their home world to heal their damaged planet. After 150,000 years of constant mining, the slave worker Anunnakis got very tired and sick of mining and were on the brink of war and revolution with their people. Now, until the prince of the Anunnaki, Enki, came up with a solution, Enki decided to create a slave race to do the work that the Anunnaki didn't want to do. So he created a new species, which is now known to be African Americans. By taking the DNA of Anunnaki and merging it with the DNA of the current or the previous existing dominant species of the world, the hominid or Homo erectus, or the Homo hepaticus, I forget. Let's just go with Homo erectus. That's what I believe they merged their DNA with. They created a whole new species, which then came to be known as Homo sapien. From there on out, they used this new bred species of Anunnaki and Homo habilis. The Homo habilis, that is it. Pardon me, not Homo erectus. Homo habilis. They combined the DNA of habilis and Anunnaki to create a new species called Homo sapien, and that species would be mining their gold as a way to serve their gods, as they convinced them to believe, over the next 300,000 years or so. Over the next several 100,000 years, they mined for gold, this new species. But the Anunnaki never really transferred their consciousness into avatar bodies, as we know of. It's very wonky, the history. There are some things that are very solid, but others that are slightly unknown. Siri popped up for some reason, I don't know why. But it was said that Thoth the Atlantean did indeed transfer his consciousness into different avatar bodies over the years, and he recorded this himself in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. Now, we know one of these tablets exists for sure, but the other 10 are skeptical. But I've read what's in these translations. They sound, I'll say, nonetheless than rock solid. But in these tablets, Thoth talked about transferring his consciousness body into avatar bodies and living different lifetimes and being transferred every 100 years or so. So James Cameron got the idea of Avatar by reading the stories of the past. Stories that describe an alien race coming to Earth to mine materials to heal their broken world, and in the meantime, creating a race of beings that are both human and alien alike with shared DNA. Now, this leads me to my next piece of information in the story. At one point during the movie, Jake Sully, and Neytiri, the avatar that Jake falls in love with, native to Pandora, arrived at a sacred site, or a center hub, of biological information. Now, what's interesting about this site is the ring structures surrounding it. They are obviously not natural structures. They are artificial structure. Another note is that they are clearly tens of thousands of years old due to the massive erosion surrounding them. Now, the Na'vi are primitive 0.05 at the most advanced civilization if we were to measure them on the Kardashev scale. Give you a hint, we're not even type 1 yet. We're type 0.79, 0.78 at the most. The Na'vi are just hunter-gatherers with sticks, stones, bows and arrows. But they are a 0.05 civilization at the most. Very not so not advanced. And without advanced technologies, there's no way that they created thousands of years prior to their original advancement these ancient structures. Thousands of years prior, they were less advanced, probably 0.009 on the Kardashev scale. So there was no way they made these ring structures that are clearly man-made. It would take an advanced civilization with access to gravity and stone manipulation technology to achieve this. So what happened in the past on Pandora? At one point in the past of Pandora, this planet was likely greeted by an advanced species of space-bearing civilization with the technology to manipulate stone structures in a way to create them. But what else did the civilization create while they were on Pandora? Well, They created Pandora. Pandora has been manipulated on the genetic level too, for their entire planet is an entire brain connecting all living things. There are more biochemical connections existing on Pandora than there are biochemical connections in the human brain. Evolution doesn't do this without millions, if not billions of years to evolve, unless there was genetic tampering at by a higher evolved species. And the Na'vi, there's no way the Na'vi would know about this unless they were told so themselves. They had gods that gave them knowledge, just as we had gods in ancient Egypt and ancient Sumeria and Greece that gave us knowledge, aka the ancient aliens, advanced beings that came to Earth, modified it, created life. In this case, the Na'vi and humans, because we look back on our own time. This, again, the same story applies, but nonetheless, we were modified and given knowledge. Now, the stone rings around the center of these biological hubs hold the stone rings centered around the hubs of these biological computers. These computers hold every consciousness of every Na'vi ancestor that ever lived. Every tree, plant, bird, animal, bacteria, and every form of life on Pandora is connected through these biological reactions. The Na'vi can access it. That's the interesting part. They can access this. Every Na'vi and every other various advanced creature on Pandora have a way to connect with their hard wiring into the planet itself. I'm not sure what you call it, but a way to make a direct physical connection with creatures and share their thoughts and brain power. The fact this exists with not one species but other species says something about their genetics. The odds are 1 in billions, if not trillions, that this would happen naturally. But it can happen easily and more quickly if it was introduced to an advanced civilization tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years ago that personally modified the genetics of Pandora. Why did they do this? I'm not sure, but they did it, and Pandora is a highly evolved center for genetic information and a genetic transferring and receiving of information between species themselves. They can literally attach a part of their body, in this case their tails, can attach to parts of Pandora and just connect with the biology. It's an advanced biocomputer that essentially is a planet, and every species is an extension of this central intelligence. It's quite amazing how Cameron thought of this, but it's also quite amazing how he hid in these little facts that there's no way this happened by itself. There must be genetic alterations that happened by an advanced civilization, and it's just based off these ring structures alone that are not natural. They are artificial. That way they were designed by an advanced intelligence that most highly likely evolved the planet itself for unknown reasons. Now, to give this planet a genetic upgrade, there might have been their way of going to seed their own genetic potential on the moon to ensure their own species and genetics survives and thrives on this planet as an extension of us, as an extension of them, to seed life on other planets and grow and distribute their ways of life so it can never really die out, to expand for the glory of, in this case, Eywa, which is the Na'vi's version of God. But this hypothesis as to why they spread their genetic material, assuming that was the reason, is too early to say. We don't know just quite surely yet, but I'll put money on it's in that area. We don't know yet. We will learn, hopefully, in the sequels, if not in the prequels, although they are going to be many, many years till we see these movies, so a lot of waiting to do, but until then we can just speculate. Now, what is clear is that there was an advanced intelligence that manipulated the code of Pandora that resulted in the Na'vi and, as I just said, Eywa. Eywa is their god. It is their deity. But God is beyond the planet. Eywa is the overall grand unified consciousness of the entire planet of Pandora. And everything, as everything is a fragment of God, every living being an organism on Pandora as an extension of Eywa combined. This energy of Eywa creates what the ancients called it. I'm referring to the ancients here on Earth. They called it a Merkaba or a Merkaba, however you want to say it, or the overall light spirit of consciousness, the light, the spirit, the consciousness grid that unifies every light being on a planet. In this case, consciousness grid of Pandora is Eywa, and the Na'vi are directly connected to it thanks to her center hubs of information surrounded by rings all over the entire planet. So if we were to think of the entire planet being conscious brain, Eywa is that central intelligence, and it is the light spirit, the Merkaba, that glows around the entire planet. And the Na'vi understand this network of information. They just call it different things. They understand that it is sacred, and this is why they don't want the humans treading on it. Now, what is interesting to point out is, like here on Earth, the Na'vi's progenitors have an eye for stone structures, and we can see that here on Earth with the pyramids, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, Easter Island, etc. But we even see it on Mars with Cydonia and the pyramid structures and the face on Mars, and the 10-kilometer tall monolith structures, stone structures through our planet, Mars, and now on Pandora. Which brings me to Avatar 2, The Way of Water. Again, spoiler alerts. If the beginning of the movie, we are made aware that Grace's avatar, the scientist, Grace Alexander, I believe her name was, Grace's character got pregnant. And I should also clarify, Grace's character died in the first movie, but not before her consciousness was transferred into Eywa via the biological hub. Now, we don't know who the father was, for it was never made clear. There are theories, but I don't believe the theory is correct. Now, Kiri, that's the name of Grace's daughter, is going to be a very important character in the future for a very important reason. And as I just said, the current theory online for the dad is Dr. Norm Spellman, but I highly doubt this. There is a deep connection that Kiri shares with Eywa, almost a direct connection, but Cameron is a clever man to hide a potential the biggest secret in plain sight. Grace was connected to Eywa at the last moments of her life, and her avatar body was connected as well. They were all connected through the actual physical roots of Pandora and the biological hub. Grace was the biggest advocate of the Na'vi ways, their culture, but most importantly, she was the biggest fan of the planet Pandora, how it connected itself through Eywa. That was her passion. She studied it for years. Now, we then have Grace's character pass away, but not before she gets pregnant with an unknown father. Here I'm going with this. My prediction, and hold on to your seats because this one's quite a doozy, I predict that Kiri doesn't have a father. Grace is the mother of Kiri, but the second genetic code that was created by Eywa herself was planted into Kiri, meaning Grace is acting as Mother Mary in this case, carrying the child of God, aka Jesus, but instead of the Son of God, Grace carries the daughter of Eywa, and this is why Kiri's connection is so powerful with Eywa. And Kiri is going to be a character that I believe because Kiri, again, is part human and Na'vi. She has both human and Na'vi DNA. Kiri is going to be an important character that potentially can unite peace between man and Na'vi by bringing upon a new age of enlightenment between the two bickering species. Jesus united the world and changed history through his knowledge and teaching, so Kiri can be the one to unite man and Na'vi together to change the fate of both species on Pandora. Awe can't do this directly because she has no physical form, but the next thing and best thing she can do is place herself in a genetically pure human Na'vi hybrid being that cares for the balance of Pandora and life itself, aka never mind. Her offspring will now have access to Eywa and be the bridge that unites the two worlds. But I also believe something bigger is going to happen. Kiri's character is only one part of the solution. For the ancient beings that constructed and evolved Pandora genetically will also come into play. I don't know if in the sequel, but most likely in the prequels. Will most likely be humans will discover that there is a genetic linkage between man and Na'vi, between their DNA. For the same people that created Pandora might have also influenced Earth's beginnings and the creation of the stone structures, and with the overall goal of bringing life and unity and understanding of everything into play. We might potentially have a peace treaty between man and Na'vi by not only through graces, biologics, and genetics, but also through both our common potential shared ancestry by progenitors that created other species that we don't even know of throughout different star systems. Pandora can be one of hundreds, but we won't know until the sequels. But this is my theory. Now, I can only imagine the prequels will have to do with this ancient race and creating Pandora and the humans race as well. And I for one am looking forward to seeing this on the big screen. But until then, we will have to wait until 2025, December of 2025, to see the next sequel, the movie number 3, which is a while from now, but hey, what we're gonna do? Best we can do is speculate big time because, well, James Cameron is not done yet. He has an entire story to tell and a prequel to show. This will take 10 years to show it, but we will get there. So in 2.5 years from now, we can all sit back, grab some popcorn and a beverage at the movie theaters and enjoy Avatar 3. And later on, we will enjoy seeing how it ends and if my predictions come true at all, which I do have a hunch some of them will. Until then, next week's topic, or not next week's topic, but next topic we will be discussing will be Agartha, the lost underground city of the gods. This video will be coming out soon. That video will be coming out a few days later. Definitely at some point this week. I don't know when this week, maybe Sunday or Saturday, but nonetheless, it will be coming out. And until then, this has been the Rated R for Real podcast, where we bring you real truth, real facts, and real knowledge that those who wish you to be eyes wide shut don't want you to hear. And until the next time, stay faithful. I will if you will. And have a